Spartans, eat. Fill your stomachs, because tonight we dine in Hades. That sentence didn't just fire up soldiers. It lit a myth on fire. It turned a man into an immortal symbol, something bigger than bone, bigger than fear, bigger than history itself. 300 warriors, one narrow mountain throat, and an empire so vast ancient writers claimed it marched with over 1,000,000 men. It's the most famous sacrifice in military history, and the world thinks it knows the man behind the bronze helmet. The film showed us a warrior. It showed us a king, but it did not show us what he truly was. Because Leonidas wasn't born a hero, he was built. He was shaped. He was shattered and reforged by the most ruthless human training machine the ancient world ever created. This isn't the story of Thermopylae. That's the final page. This is the origin. This is the question nobody wants to ask. How do you manufacture a human weapon? What do you have to cut out of yourself? What part of your humanity do you have to murder to become Sparta's living legend? To understand Leonidas, you must understand what gave birth to him. Not a woman, a city. Sparta. Not Athens. No marble temples, no philosophers, no theaters. Sparta was a hard, primitive rock, held together by hunger and fear. And here's the truth. Sparta didn't fear Persia first. Sparta feared itself. The Spartans, the homoioi, the equals, were a tiny ruling caste, a thin layer of armed men sitting on top of a massive slave population. The Helots. And the Helots didn't outnumber them by a little. They outnumbered them 10-1, sometimes 20-1. So Sparta wasn't designed to conquer the world. It was designed to keep a boot on the neck of hundreds of thousands of people who hated them. Because every Spartan citizen knew the nightmare. If the Helots ever rose, Sparta would be butchered in its sleep. So Sparta created an answer. Not law, not mercy, terror. The Krypteia. A shadow unit, young Spartans sent out at night like wolves. Their job wasn't to fight foreign enemies. Their job was to hunt Helots. The strongest, the loudest, the ones who looked like leaders. They were cut down in darkness, randomly, brutally, without warning. Not for justice, for fear. It wasn't only population control. It was training. It was teaching boys to kill in the dark. This is the world Leonidas enters around 540 BC, a world of paranoia, a world of violence, a world where discipline was more important than childhood. And this is where Leonidas' story twists, where fate makes its first cruel joke. He wasn't just Spartan, he was royal. He belonged to the Aegead line, one of Sparta's 2 royal houses. Yes, 2 kings, a system designed to keep any one man from becoming too powerful. But royal blood in Sparta didn't mean comfort, it didn't mean softness, and for Leonidas it meant something worse. Because Leonidas wasn't the firstborn, he wasn't the heir. He wasn't the chosen one. He was the spare. He had 2 older brothers, 2 men standing between him and the crown. So while heirs were sometimes sheltered and prepared to rule, Leonidas was treated like every other Spartan boy. And that detail changes everything. Because in Sparta, the heir could be protected, but the spare could be thrown into the fire. At 7 years old, Leonidas was taken. No gentle goodbye, no mercy, no second glance. He was thrown into the Agoge. People call it a school. That word is too clean. The Agoge wasn't education. It was a factory designed to destroy boys and rebuild weapons. Imagine special forces training. Now imagine it lasts 13 years. Now imagine it begins at 7. 1 tunic per year. No shoes, not in summer heat, not in winter ice. They slept on the ground, on reeds they had to rip from the riverbanks themselves. They were starved on purpose, not as punishment, as design. Because hunger makes children desperate, and desperate children steal. But Sparta's cruelty had a deeper trap. They weren't punished for stealing food. They were punished for being caught. The crime wasn't theft. The crime was weakness. The crime was incompetence. The message was simple and brutal. Be clever. Be silent. Be invisible. Older boys ruled younger ones like tyrants. Beatings weren't discipline. Beatings were the lesson. Pain wasn't accidental. Pain was the point. Sparta wasn't trying to raise men. It was trying to erase what makes a man human. And in that nightmare, Leonidas, royal blood or not, was treated worse than an animal. So, ask yourself, what does that do to a child? Most break. Some become empty, obedient shells. But a rare few become something else. History tells us Leonidas was different. He didn't just survive the Agoge, he fed on it. Where others saw cruelty, he saw a contest. Where others felt pain, he found a limit to crush. He learned to dominate the system that was meant to destroy him. He learned to burn hunger, cold, and suffering into fuel. And the Agoge taught one lesson above all: laconic speech, economy of words, never show emotion, never complain, speak only when it matters. And when you speak, your words strike like a spear. Leonidas became the perfect Spartan ideal: cold, disciplined, lethal. But while he was being forged in hell, fate was moving inside the palace, because his older brothers, those ahead of him, were about to destroy themselves. The Agoge was only the first filter. The real test was power, madness, blood. Leonidas was learning to lead, to kill, to obey. But in the palace, another war was raging. A war of succession. The throne of Sparta wasn't a straight line. Leonidas's father, Anaxandridas, had 3 sons that mattered. First, Cleomenes, the firstborn, the heir. And here lies Sparta's weakness. The heir was exempt from the Agoge. Cleomenes didn't sleep on reeds, didn't starve, didn't bleed under beatings. He was raised as a prince, while his brothers were raised as wolves. Second, Dorius, next in line. Dorius did go through the Agoge. He was strong, proud, violent, everything Sparta worshipped. And he despised Cleomenes because he saw a man who suffered nothing inheriting everything. Around 520 BC, the king dies. Cleomenes is crowned, and for Dorius this is unbearable. The warrior has to kneel before the pampered heir. Sparta's air turns poisonous, tension so thick it could be cut with iron. So, what happens? A coup? A murder? No, something worse for a Spartan. Exile. Dorius refuses to breathe the same air as his brother. He declares Sparta contaminated. He gathers the toughest warriors who follow him and abandons the city. He sails out to build his own kingdom, Libya, then Sicily. He wants destiny. He finds death. His expedition collapses. He is ambushed, slaughtered, his dream erased in foreign soil. The second heir is dead, and now all eyes turn to Cleomenes. And power reveals the truth. Cleomenes isn't just a bad king. He's unstable, impulsive, violent. He starts wars without permission. He clashes with the ephors. Rumors spread. Bribes, corruption, sacrilege. One moment he's brilliant. The next he's a paranoid lunatic. Then madness finally explodes. The ephors declare him insane. They arrest him, chain him, humiliate him publicly. Sparta's king treated like a rabid animal. And then he dies. The official story is almost too grotesque to believe. They say he convinced a guard to give him a blade and then cut himself apart. Legs, thighs, hips, chest, until he bled out. But was it suicide? Or was it an execution disguised as mercy, removing a king who became a danger to the state? We don't know. But we do know the result. The pampered heir is dead, the warrior heir is dead, and the spare, the boy forged by the Agoge, remains. Around 490 BC, Leonidas takes the crown, not because he was chosen, because everyone else collapsed. Sparta didn't just crown a prince, it crowned its most perfected weapon. And the timing couldn't be worse, because in the east, another monster was rising, a king unlike anything Greece had ever faced. In Susa, inside a palace larger than all Sparta, sat a ruler who didn't command 20,000 warriors. He ruled, according to reports, 70 million souls. They didn't call him king. They called him King of Kings, Xerxes. Xerxes wasn't starved at 7. He was wrapped in silk. He wasn't taught to steal bread. The world was served to him. And now he wanted Greece, because his father, Darius, had already tried. He sent an invasion force. They landed at Marathon, and the Athenians, against all logic, crushed them. For Darius, it was a setback. For Xerxes, it became obsession. This wasn't politics anymore. It was revenge. It was personal. So Xerxes spent years building an invasion so huge it defies belief. Ancient writers claim millions. Modern historians say 200,000 or 300,000. But the number doesn't matter. To Greece, it was infinite. So many men they drained rivers. So many boots they turned the sky brown with dust. To cross the Hellespont, Xerxes built bridges of boats stretching over a kilometer. When storms destroyed them, Xerxes ordered the sea whipped, 300 lashes against water. Then the engineers were executed. This wasn't a campaign. This was divine ego marching west. And before the swords came humiliation. Xerxes sent envoys to every Greek city-state with one demand: earth and water, submission. The land you walk on belongs to Xerxes. The water you drink belongs to Xerxes. Greece fractures. Cities surrender, some from fear, some from calculation. The alliance collapses before a single arrow is fired. And then the envoys arrive in Sparta. They speak the demand: earth and water. Leonidas, the man trained to waste no words, doesn't debate. He doesn't negotiate. He answers like Sparta answers. They seize the envoys, drag them to a well, and give them their earth and water personally. They fall screaming into darkness. Diplomacy is dead, and now there is no turning back, because Xerxes will not punish Sparta. He will attempt to erase it. The splash at the bottom of the well wasn't the end. It was the sound of hell opening. News spreads like wildfire. Sparta has condemned everyone. Athens, Corinth, Thebes, cities that hated each other now realize extinction is coming. An emergency congress is called, and for the first time, all eyes turn to Sparta, because the rest of Greece has ships, merchants, poets, but Sparta has the army. Sparta has the machine. The demand is simple. You started this. Now save us. Themistocles of Athens proposes the only strategy that can work: a two-front defense. Hold Persia at sea, hold Persia on land. But land is the problem. In open field, Persian cavalry will crush Greece. So they need a bottleneck, a place so narrow numbers mean nothing, a place where an empire becomes a trickle. Thermopylae, the hot gates, a narrow pass with mountain on one side and sea on the other. The plan? Sparta marches, the phalanx holds the pass, the fleet fights in the straits. Greece survives. Leonidas goes to the ephors to mobilize the Spartan army, and the ephors say no. Not because of strategy. Religion, the Krypteia festival. The law says Sparta cannot march to war, while Persia marches anyway. This is Leonidas's real enemy: tradition, superstition, cowardice disguised as piety. But Leonidas was raised in the Agoge. He was trained to find cracks in systems, and he finds one. The law forbids the army, but it does not forbid the king's personal guard. So Leonidas gathers the Hippies, 300, the elite of the elite. Officially, it isn't war, it's an advance force. But Leonidas knows what it truly is: a funeral march. And then he gives the order that freezes blood. Only men with living sons may join. Why? Because he isn't choosing warriors, he's choosing sacrifices whose bloodlines will survive their deaths. This is not a mission to win, it's a mission to die correctly. 300 men, 300 bloodlines secured, 300 sent into hell, by law, by duty, by their king. In Sparta, farewells aren't soft. No tears, no begging. Spartan women hand shields to their sons and speak the cruelest love Sparta ever invented. Come back with it, or on it. Victory or death carried home on the shield. Anything else is shame. Gorgo, Leonidas's wife, doesn't plead. She asks what she should do. Leonidas answers like a man already dead. Marry a good man, have good sons. The 300 march, 600 armored sandals striking the earth like a drumbeat of doom. But before Leonidas faces the god-king on earth, he goes to face the gods. Delphi, the oracle speaks: either Sparta falls, or a Spartan king must die. For Leonidas, it isn't fear, it's confirmation. The gods have signed his death warrant, and he accepts it like an order. He marches north. The Greek army is supposed to join him, but fear spreads faster than courage. Instead of 20,000 men, Leonidas gathers maybe 7,000 against a force that could swallow nations. But Leonidas doesn't care. He doesn't need victory. He needs the location of death. Thermopylae is perfect. At its narrowest, 15 meters wide. Here, cavalry is useless. Here, numbers mean nothing. Here, the phalanx becomes a bronze wall. Leonidas rebuilds the wall. This will be the line. And they wait. Then Xerxes arrives. And it isn't an army. It's a moving continent. So vast, scouts claim arrows will darken the sun. Xerxes rides forward, sees the wall, and sees the Spartans calmly combing their hair. A final message is sent. Surrender. Hand over your weapons. Leonidas smiles and answers with 2 words that became immortal. Molon labe. Come and take them. It isn't a reply. It's a challenge. Xerxes' arrogance cracks. At dawn, the assault begins. Xerxes sends disposable troops first, men meant to die. They slam into the Greek line and shatter. Because the Spartan phalanx isn't a group of fighters, it's a machine. Shields locked, spears layered, bronze and murder. Persian wicker shields break, cloth armor tears, bodies pile so tight men can't even fall. Leonidas gives the order, Othismos, the push. Persians behind keep forcing forward. Persians in front cannot retreat. They are crushed by their own numbers, impaled meters from the wall. A meat grinder. Xerxes is furious, so he unleashes his elite, the immortals. 10,000, the terror of the empire. And still, the wall holds. Leonidas rotates like deers. When one tires, another replaces him. The machine never stops. 2 days, the pass becomes a butcher's hallway, sea red with blood, ground carpeted with corpses. Xerxes bleeds pride. Then comes poison, a traitor, Ephialtes. He reveals a mountain path around the pass, behind the Spartans. Persian troops march through the night. The Phocians guarding the trail panic under arrows and flee. And suddenly Leonidas is surrounded. Front, back, death closing like jaws. Greek allies beg Leonidas to retreat, to run, to save something. Leonidas gives his final order. Leave, live, warn Greece. Most flee, but not all. 700 Thespians stay. They choose death. And the Thebans? Leonidas keeps them hostages. Even at the end, he uses men like tools. Now only about 1,000 remain against the world. Leonidas removes his helmet, breathes in, looks at his men, and then he unleashes them. Spartans, eat well, because tonight we dine in Hades. They stop defending. They charge. They slam into the Persian tide like wolves into a flood. Spears snap. Swords shatter. Men fight with hands, with teeth, with rage. Leonidas isn't a king now. He's a butcher, a weapon. He kills until Persians refuse to approach him. So they do what cowards do when bravery terrifies them. They shoot him. Arrows, javelins, a storm of metal. The king falls, and then begins the most savage fight of the battle, the fight for his body. Spartans form a shield wall around his corpse. 4 times Xerxes charge. 4 times they're thrown back. Even Xerxes' relatives die trying to seize him. Finally, Xerxes gives the order. No more honor, no more courage, extermination. The sky turns black, arrows fall like rain, and when the sun returns, the pass is silent. Xerxes has won, but he paid for it with blood. Reports say 20,000 Persian dead, maybe more, to kill 300 Spartans and 700 Thebans. Xerxes finds Leonidas dead, riddled, surrounded by Persian corpses, and in rage he makes his greatest mistake. He desecrates the body, decapitates him, mounts the head on a spike, crucifies the corpse. He thinks he is humiliating Sparta, but he has done the opposite. He has forged a legend that cannot die, because Sparta doesn't worship comfort. Sparta worships sacrifice, and Leonidas became the perfect sacrifice. The runners Leonidas sent race south, and they don't carry a story of defeat. They carry a story of rage. 300 men held the largest army on earth for days, not to win, to buy time. Time to evacuate Athens, time to prepare the fleet, time for fear to become fury. At Salamis, Greece shatters Persia's navy. Xerxes flees in panic back to Asia. A year later, at Plataea, Sparta marches with full force, not to defend, to avenge. They crush the invasion. The oracle is fulfilled. Sparta survives. The price is a king. Leonidas was not a philosopher, not a builder, not a good man by modern standards. He was the perfected creation of a brutal system, a monster designed for one purpose, to be the shield. The Agoge stripped him of fear, compassion, individuality, and in Greek's darkest hour, that brutality became salvation. Xerxes had an empire. Leonidas had a story. And in the end, the story won. If you want the real brutal origins behind history's greatest warriors, kings, conquerors, and monsters, welcome to Reinvoke History. Because here, we don't just show you how they died, we show you how they were made.